Good evening and welcome to Whiskey Wednesday. Tonight we're coming live on site at Dragon's Mouth Distillery where we've been doing a little sugar wash, making something that might be rum, gin, or flavored vodka. Joining as my co-host, normal, or however you want to say it, the usual co-host, the ninja, Dr. Jason Pittman. And tonight we're going to be talking a little bit about some leadership traits, specifically get into the Michigan model of leadership. I'm your host, Dr. Dan Ford, and this is Echelon Orchid.
Guess who's back?
Ninja, cheers to you, my friend.
Cheers to you, my friend.
It's almost as if you haven't left.
I know, right? I can't believe it's Wednesday already.
This is like the most we've been around each other since we both lived in Maryland, and we're doing our doctorate.
You know, if you think back to it, man, how cool is it? I got that apartment sight unseen. I signed the lease over the internet. I never even looked at it. I don't know that I looked at pictures of it. And I end up like 2 blocks from you.
It's almost like I planned it.
Or it was just coincidence.
I don't believe in coincidence.
Or it was like the only nice place to live in that area.
Yeah, I mean, when you want to go like 5 minutes to the campus, I mean, it was pretty much literally, it. If you want to at a reasonable price, like you can go like double the price and be like right next to the campus, but there's nothing there either, but you pay double the price.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
So,
I liked that place. It was nice, man. And I had that little pond right outside my patio. I was on the 2nd story, and the geese would come in and the geese would leave. I loved it.
yeah, I mean, it was nice. And then, of course, especially since I could brew some beer and get you completely bombed at that point because it sneaks up on you. Those bourbon barrel stouts.
That was strong.
Yeah. So anyway, for those that don't know, you were out with me for a few days of ring in the new year and check out our operations at the distillery. And then over that course, it was, hey, what is Jason's leadership style according to the best university out there, University of Michigan? And I do recall me calling what your top 2 were. Probably, and I think we've talked a little bit about, at least on the show before, that from the Michigan model of leadership, and there's all these different ones. They're all pretty similar. University of Michigan, there's a reason why they're the #1 research institute for executive leadership. I mean, they do just a ton of research in this area, and hey, they're all pretty similar. I'm a little bit biased, but I had a lot of fun with it, and so from Michigan standpoint, I'm a yellow, what they would call a sage. Someone who likes to do some team building and really try to figure out all the pieces that go together. And so I was like, all right, Ninja, let's see what you are. And you had the missus take a look and called it out, and I'm like, this dude is a green blue. Now, I thought it would have been a little bit closer green blue, but I mean, hey, that could have only been a couple of questions. I mean, it was only like 14 questions or something like that. It wasn't a lot. Maybe,
No, it wasn't long.
May have been 20 questions. But I still had it right that green was your top, which is artist, and then blue being athlete. Basically being, hey, once you figure out what it is that you want to do, everyone get the hell out of the way because I'm going to get it done. And which actually goes quite well with my personality, because I tend to be yellow, green, or depending on my mood, could be yellow, green, yellow, blue. But funny enough, engineer for both of us, like significantly last. Like it wasn't even close. And then we kept on going back and trying to explain that, look, there's not one any better than the other. The best thing is to be around people that are very different from you so you can actually innovate. If everyone thinks just the way you do, you're not getting anything done. Because you're going to be like, oh, yeah, that sounds good. Oh, yeah, that sounds good. And, well, why the hell did that blow up in our face?
Right.
Now, I'm wondering, did you have Mrs. Pittman take it?
Uh, Not yet. I intend to, because after I came back from South Bend, uh, we basically had a day together, which largely consisted of prepping her and baby Pittman to take a long trip to California, which is where they're at now. But I did have three of my colleagues at Booz Allen on my futures team take it. And I'll tell you what's interesting. And so the futures work is quite a bit different than most other professions. Because it's so highly what you would classify in your model as creative. And so I was interested in seeing, because we've actually been having this conversation internally. With there's four, kind of six of us if you count some people that do it as a billable project on the side of what their normal duties are. That most people would be strongly creative aligned, and in fact, they all were, and they all were almost in the same ratio of distribution. And they
So
were
what were they? Were they artist athlete? Like so the green blue?
no green yellow.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me, right? So they want the
No,
collaboration and they want so from that Michigan model, they're adjacent.
yes.
The green and yellow. So
Mhm.
not surprising at all.
No, and here's the thing I started to think about is, and even their ratios. So my ratios were pretty skewed. If I remember some right, it was 70% plus my primary, and my secondary was quite a bit less, and then the other dimensions were,
Single digit.
negligible. But they were the same. Okay, so then I started asking myself after they returned their results, and they found this massively interesting. By the way, we had a long conversation about it during a meeting yesterday, and here's what I stumbled on. You tell me what you think about this and what you noticed with yourself and perhaps your classmates or those people that you work with or work for you that have taken this. One thing that makes me unique amongst most people will encounter is not only am I left-handed, which is about 1 in 10, but I'm left-handed but right-eye dominant, which is exceedingly rare. And so I think that's why my athlete is my secondary, as opposed to what you would normally see with a creative primary trait.
I don't know that there's been any studies in that regard, but what's really kind of funny when you say that, while I'm dominant right-handed, I say dominant right because there's a lot that I do left-handed. It's
Mm-hmm.
just, you know, I am. I hate saying ambidextrous because I don't think anyone's truly ambidextrous. I think you're dominant left or dominant right and can do a lot of things even maybe with your other hand. Um, but I'm left eye dominant.
Mm-hmm.
And so predominantly in playing baseball, which is why like someone like Ty Cobb, Ted Williams, while they were left-handed, they were right eye dominant. Their right eye is what faces the ball more. I also being right hand dominant left eye, my left eye is what faced the pitcher more. So it's pretty funny that, in a way that you're dominant left hand, but you're right eye dominant. I don't know how unique it is for right hand, left eye dominant. I have no idea, but I don't think it's usual. I think without any research, I think like, hey, if you're right-handed or left-handed, that's also probably the eye that is dominant.
Um, well,
Don't know.
when you get into chirality or handedness, um, there's way more reasons why somebody's right-handed than left-handed. If we'll just start there, it's not genetic, by the way. Some people think like because left-handed is a pretty big exception, 1 in 10 on average. It's not genetic. There's like 3 reasons why people are left-handed, whereas there's like 10 in terms of traits and things like that for right-handed. That's why it's way more common. It's not true always that your handedness is always cross hemisphere. In fact, right eye dominance, like right handedness, is far more prevalent. So most people are right handed and right eye dominant. So to summarize that, most people that are left handed are left eye dominant because everything stays on that hemisphere. If you're right handed, you're usually right eye dominant because it stays on that hemisphere. Crossing hemispheres is rare.
So then it wouldn't matter. Like if you right hand, left eye, cross hemisphere, right?
That's a cross hemisphere, yeah.
Just want to make sure.
Yeah.
I've been making alcohol, for the last several hours. You never know what's going to happen.
Well, because look at it this way. Even though largely we're asymmetric, everybody has an ear that's higher, everybody has an eye that's slightly higher. We're not perfectly symmetrical, even though our brain looks at it that way. The reason why our brain looks at it that way is because of our eye dominance. And so you can easily tell which eye is dominant because you hold a thumb up and you close your eyes, and whichever eye, when it's open, the thumb doesn't move. That's your dominant eye. Okay? So, or if you imagine shooting a gun and looking down the sight, even though you shouldn't close both eyes, the one that you leave open is your dominant eye.
Yeah, sure.
Easy test.
Yeah.
Now, we know that certain types of functions are hemispheric. They're located on one hemisphere versus the other. That's true. That's absolutely true. But we're largely symmetrical in the sense that whatever your dominant side is the side you tend to put forward. Like if you look at the way I sit or I tilt my head, I naturally put my right eye forward. You put your left eye forward. And you orient your body to do that. That's because of the asymmetry or the orientation in our dominant side.
Yeah, I mean, it makes a ton of sense. And so, bringing it back to that leadership aspect, we were talking about, a lot of your folks, your coworkers were, green artists, which is like creative.
Mm-hmm.
Some people might even say like, hey, head in the sky, pie in the sky type people, you can't get anything done. And then the same thing in many ways, like that sage, that yellow, can't get anything done on their own.
Right.
That's overall an extreme combination. Now, when I say an extreme combination, it means they could think of the idea, but they can't implement it on their own. They need to figure out a team that can do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so they need someone that can actually not only help put together a team, but they can actually get it done, right? So you need either, like those people that are green yellows, they need someone that's either got a dominant blue or a dominant red, which is our athlete blue, engineer red, or they're getting nothing done. Those are like the great people that can do like intellectual property research, trademark research, but like don't try to put that proof of concept together or bring it to that MVP, the minimum viable product, because that's not them.
Well, and so that's what we've been talking about in terms of hiring is, okay, so given the nature of our mission, we may only get green dominant people just because of the mindset we're looking for, right?
Yeah,
so in your experience, how important is the ratio to the secondary?
I don't know how important it is. This is where I talk to my people quite a bit about this. And this is why I was curious about Mrs. Pittman. Because my missus is an engineer, which doesn't surprise me at all. Because I know in my last two, and maybe even three, number two people in terms of professional, they've all been engineer athlete or athlete engineer, like blue red blue, like not even close. Definitely like heavy red, which is an engineer trait. Because I can think of the idea and I know how to put a team together. The difference, in terms of our ratios, which is a little bit, I don't know how unique it is. I've never really studied it, and I've never seen a study. But I'm pretty dominant yellow, which is sage. But my artist and athlete go back and forth to the number two because they're pretty close in ratio. Mm-hmm. Engineer, low single digits. Because I find process improvement I can do it. I know I can do it. I don't enjoy it. It's not what I'm great at. And we've talked about many times. Do what you're great at. Don't spend, if you're just good at it, find someone else. If you are if you're less than great, find someone else to do it. Because some things about these, whatever those aspects need to be. Don't waste time on anything you're not great at. Uh, Not that you can't lead people in those areas, but hey, if you're not great, don't do it.
Find a compliment, right? I mean,
Yeah,
that's why it's kind of a powerful visualization. I think of it like a color wheel.
yeah, yeah. And so when I look at it, I'm like, all right, it's funny that like my last, my spouse as well as my last, three like right hand people, so to speak, in professions, are all pretty high up engineer or athlete. None of them are heavy sage. They might have, they do tend to have a little bit of green or somewhat, but they're just not heavy sage. They're not heavy yellow.
Yeah, if I had to guess,
That's why I'm the kingmaker.
if I had to guess, I'll report back on this. The the girls come back on Saturday, so by the time we do the next podcast, I'll have a report for you. But if I had to guess, Mrs. Pittman's probably some ratio of blue and red. Um, I don't know which is her primary. Um,
She's very process driven, but that doesn't mean anything because that has an influence in terms of whether or not you need external internal discipline as well. And
right.
so a lot of people that are engineer driven rely upon the organization as their discipline as well. Like, hey, we have to do it this way because this has been the organization's process for X amount of time, and we're not changing, right?
Right. Right.
Again, that doesn't mean it's good or bad. It's neutral. You need other people to go, well, that process was great in 1996 because of these particular things that were going on. Let's say we were to take first principles design thinking, and now that we know all the things that we know, and we do this from the beginning, how would we do it now? Almost every time, we're gonna be like, well, I know more, so I'm gonna do it this way.
Yeah.
And that's where enterprise architecture, in my mind, really plays a key point. In that
Hmm.
I'm always designing things based upon a future state, never based upon my current. I take a look at the current, and then you develop that transition plan to get to the future. I'm really good at identifying that future state. What I don't want to do, I don't want to, is develop that transition. That's where
Yeah.
that engineer comes into play. When you tell an engineer the what, boom, they flourish. They're right, bam, they're done. They know exactly what to do, and they'll get you there.
Hmm.
Um, I can define the what, not not necessarily the how in terms of a strength. I know how I would do it, but how I would do it is going to be a lot looser than what an engineer would, and that means I will. I hate saying the word shortcut, but I won't be as rigid in a repeatability of getting to that target.
Well, for my temperament, I'll take innovation over perfection every single time.
Yeah.
Every single time. I'll take building something new and novel over building something that's established into its perfect form. Even though this is the interesting thing, like with art or music, I very much admire it, and I have fantasies of being that, but I know that I'm not. I'm not going to say I'm not capable, but that's the informal way to articulate that idea. That it's just I'm not going to see it through to its completion to that perfect form, even though I recognize what that perfect form is. Whereas like
Well,
Mrs. Pittman, I think understands what that perfect form is and can manifest it.
well, this is where I slightly go. I mean, I wouldn't say it's necessarily against what you're saying. I think there's perfection in that imperfection, right?
Yeah, sure, sure,
And
sure.
I don't think I'll stop. I mean, I think if you ask many artists if they could keep going and going and going, whether it be that piece of artwork or that song, they would keep going, but they had a deadline. Now maybe the songwriter might go, well, I can't think of any way I can improve upon this right now. The painter, I think maybe if you left them to their devices, they would keep tweaking. Like they wouldn't stop. They might go, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. Um, I don't know. I'm neither, but I
Well,
believe that both of the all of them there's so much perfection in that imperfection. I think that's a lot of reason why like Monet is so revered.
Hmm. Hmm.
That Starry Night, like I think that is Starry Night, right? Van Gogh. That's Van Gogh,
That's Van Gogh, yeah.
right? Even like same thing with Monet, Van Gogh, which both of them. That aspect of Starry Night, that town in the background is like, oh, there's a town, but the night sky, like, whoa, like, I go, dude, what were you taking in order to see the sky like that?
Uh, I don't know what you're referring to, Dr. Ford. No,
I
see,
have never partake, so
so
I can only imagine.
you can manifest this a different way. One of the things that is different between us that I've noticed over time is,
That I'm extremely better looking.
well, I clearly have the better mustache. I mean, let's be real here.
Look, that's because I'm like I got the Doc Holliday going on. Your mustache is not conducive to Doc Holliday. That's what it is.
So I've actually talked to you about this very briefly sometimes, and your feedback was good. But I talked to Mrs. Pittman about it a lot, which is, I feel like I don't get included in groups, and for years I've wondered why. Until I realized that it's not that I don't get included; it's that the group doesn't need me, and my temperament aligns
I think
me.
it's the other way around.
Oh no, I was just going to say that, and my purpose by temperament is to not be part of the group, and I think there's a reason for that. It's because when something has to be innovated, it's necessarily outside of the status quo. So this is like the shaman journey, right? The shaman always lived outside of the village because he couldn't be part of it, because he had to step into it to provide that journey, that vehicle, right? And if you're in it, you're part of it. You can't do that. You have to exist outside of it. And I think that's that. I think that's that primary trait. I do think the secondary trait, and to lesser degrees the tertiary and the quaternary, are important. And that's why, like, when we were having this conversation on the futures team of, well, look, man, if we're all going to end up creative greens, that's probably necessary because of the nature of the work, like I was saying earlier. But we better not all be yellows. Like I'm a blue. But we might want to look for another blue or maybe a red. No, I don't.
Well,
I don't
the
know.
red will help you with the process aspect. Like if someone were to say to you all, well, how are you going to get this done? That's going to help.
Yeah, but the problem is I don't know that you can find somebody that's a green red.
I mean,
that's rough.
No, likely not. You will find someone that's a blue red.
Yeah, right, or a red blue or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. And so I think it's a powerful way to organize yourself. Now, what's interesting to me is I'd stumble onto these colors not through leadership. This actually goes back all the way to the Greeks when they started studying what were called the humors. This goes back to, oh man, there was a couple Roman philosopher physicians. The Hippocratic Oath. Hippocrates is the first one that came up with this idea that you have these four humors and they're aligned to organs. This is interesting, connecting to Chinese medicine. Okay, traditional Chinese medicine.
The meridian lines.
Yeah. There's some overlap here where, if I remember right, because the colors are the same. They're red, green. I think they had black instead of blue, and they had yellow. So black, blue. Okay, man, that's close enough, dude. And those corresponded to like blood, bile, phlegm, and I don't remember the other one off the top of my head. But they roughly align to this pattern of, well, there's four of them. They have these colors, and you can organize temperament according to which organ is producing the humor in that person most strongly. And so like sanguinary people or red aligned people were fiery. They had tempers, right? It's a beautiful system to organize temperament across. And that actually corresponds, I know you listen to Jordan Peterson, depending on how you look at it, the 5 or 10 dimensions of personality. It's
Yeah.
interesting that these patterns keep cropping up across time.
Well, not just across time, across cultures.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter the culture, doesn't matter the overall population group. It's they want it manifesting. But going back to the mustaches, you like because you're a Sam Elliott like you just can't do the Doc Hollidays. It's not possible.
That's eating at you a little bit, isn't it?
No, I mean, hey, I think it's great. Like you got that Tom Selleck, Sam Elliott aspect, and hey, there is perfection in your imperfections.
Hey, man, last I checked, look, there's no missing pieces there, man. It's all grown in thick.
Dude, that's because it is it's a Colombian caterpillar that's been somehow misplaced into Africa. Because you messed up. You messed up.
No, I said it on purpose for its ridiculousness.
Yeah, but like an 8-year-old's not going to know it. And I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
So finally, you admit it's not truly an African caterpillar on that. It's South American or Central American. I can't remember. Where is Colombia? Is it Colombia in Central America or South America? I can't remember.
I believe, somebody can correct me, that's classified as Central America.
Yeah, I don't remember. I know it's somewhere like there. I
Yeah.
don't even know why Central America is considered a continent. Like it just doesn't. How could that be a continent?
It's not.
Then what is it?
It's purgatory.
Well, I guess we're not getting anyone to sponsor this show that's from Central America.
I mean, what do you want to get sponsored by coffee or cocaine? Like, what else, dude? I mean, I'm not hating on anybody, but what else is there? Let's be honest.
I mean, I'm not opposed to either for those consenting adults where it's perfectly legal for them to do so.
It ain't none of my business, man.
I'm not hating. Hey, and this is just where it's really interesting when you start talking about these things. If every single drug that you could think of were legal, would you do it? And to me, I just go, I've got caffeine and alcohol. I mean, if everything else was out there, not that I hate on anyone for doing anything. I just go, I think I'm good. I don't even have a desire to do anything else. Now, what I wonder though is, let's say we fast forward 100 years and everything's legal, and I grew up in an environment where it was all legal. Would I have partaked? That I can't answer. I would imagine I might in some cases, but I could just as equally imagine I would still probably just be caffeine and alcohol.
I would suggest it's largely a function of culture.
Yeah.
And because, we grew up in the 80s with Nancy Reagan's DARE program and the beginning and really the height of the war on drugs. It's not culturally something we're assimilated into. Now, that said, there is an enormous amount of scientific evidence that suggests that broad legalization produces the opposite effect of what people would intuitively believe happens. Which is, no, it's not bedlam and chaos and anarchy. It's people actually self-regulate quite a bit. It's a lot like cookies and cookie jars.
Yeah, I mean, but even not a but. I mean, I've read the research. If all of a sudden I was diagnosed with a number of different ailments that marijuana could help alleviate some of the symptoms, I mean, I would do it because the doctor would be telling me, hey, you know what? You've got, X. This kind of helps. Okay, well, I would do it because I don't want those symptoms. That kind of sucks. Like, why do something that puts you in a constant state of agony when there's a potential remedy available? And that doesn't matter to me if it's a headache. Doesn't matter if it's COVID. Treatment is always something we should focus on, and especially those that are going to alleviate symptoms, like glaucoma, leukemia, various different things. Hey, why not?
Well, I mean, for me, well, I'll give you my point of view real quick, but I did look something up. Come to find out, for the record, Colombia is part of South America, not Central America. However, Um, I'll list the Central American countries for the record. Belize,
Uruguay,
no.
Belize,
Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua, and Panama.
a lot of cocaine coming out of all those countries. You know what comes out of South America? A bunch of badasses that can pretty much fight anywhere, anytime.
And guinea pigs.
Out of New Guinea?
No, Peru. What the fuck, dude? That's a delicacy there, bro.
Is it?
Seriously, I'm not joking. Yeah, I'm 100% serious.
The only place I've been in South America is Brazil, and I didn't see anything. I was just a. We're
So
there
this
looking
is
at manufacturing.
this is a bit of a tangent, but one of my hobbies is ancient culture, and of course in Peru there's Machu Picchu, famous landmark. And when Mrs. Pittman and I were dating, we had planned a sojourn from Cusco and backpacking up to Machu Picchu. It's very special. There's limited passes you can buy. You can only do it during the dry season, and that's a hard hike, dude. And you have to shoot cocoa leaves, by the way. Like you have to. The elevation changes are too extreme. So anyway, we plan this trip. I buy the permits, not the tickets, and we get some gear, and we take some practice hikes in the mountains in California, which are not as extreme, but they're at the same elevation, about 10,000 feet. And we quickly find out Mrs. Pittman gets very severe altitude sickness. Here's what sucks. I was going to propose to her at the top of Machu Picchu. A little trivia pursuit for whoever's watching. I don't know. Anyway.
So, with your ancient civilizations, what continent was Atlantis on?
Its own. What do you mean?
Well, guess it depends. What was it? Plato or Socrates thought it was actually in the middle of Africa?
There's some interesting writings that talk about the nation, essentially of Atlantis and stuff like that. There's a lot of speculation. There was a dude just on the Joe Rogan podcast. I can't think of his name. I'd have to look it up. Just a couple weeks ago, that had some really interesting information to share, and there's some increasing evidence of what might be something. Here's what changes things. Atlantis is the Atlantic Ocean. That's the name, right? People forget that the Himalayas were covered by the Atlantic Ocean at one point. That's why you have Himalayan sea salt. It's called Himalayan sea salt because it's in the Himalaya mountains, but it's sea salt. It's from the sea. Yeah, right? And so that's where you get things a little twisted. So it wasn't like Atlantis was in Africa as we know Africa. Atlantis very well made.
In Africa, as we know where the continent of Africa is, based on whatever as things were closer together, whatever we called them.
Yeah, that was called Pangea.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. It might have been off the coast of that. But anyway, there's a lot of little interesting things, man, that, I'm not going to say, well, it's not aliens, but it was aliens. But there's some peculiarities of cross-cultural pollination of ideas, particularly around architecture.
Right.
I don't know, man. I just find that shit fascinating. I find it fascinating how knowledge gets distributed.
I find it fascinating based on the number of continents that we have and the number of similar buildings, pyramids, that are of continents that are all very similar. Like, I don't believe in coincidence. Like, how do they all kind of look very similar and all really, really big? And there was no like heavy machinery to put those 6-ton blocks in place.
Yeah, like if you look at the South American temple pyramid artifacts, ziggurats, because they're stepped, those are very similar to the original Egyptian pyramids, not the ones at Giza. Like if you go to Karnak or Abydos, those are ziggurat stepped pyramids. There's a lot of little interesting things, man. and stories that have carried forward. This is one of the things as an English major, of course, I enjoy about storytelling and narrative is there's always elements of truth in it. It's based on some measure of reality in varying degrees, right?
Right,
I don't
right.
know, man. Yeah,
Just interesting, you know. I mean, I just go, don't believe in coincidence, so
right. Are you giving distilling instructions?
yeah, and we're at a point where we're ready to pitch the yeast, and it's like, well, how much yeast do we need to pitch? And I'm like, well, I actually haven't done the sugar wash because we're basically starting it off. It could be rum, it could be whatever. But last time I did it, I bought all of the yeast from a homebrew store, and so I was like, all right, I'm doing 50 gallons, so I need 10 5-gallon homebrew patches. Well, it's a little bit different when you buy the yeast directly from the manufacturer because they're giving you the exact amount of yeast you need for your starting gravity.
Right, right.
So it's a little bit different. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna have to look this up.
Yeah,
And
and
then I'm
specific
being
gravities.
signaled, hey, do I need to know what the specific gravity is? I already know what it is. I've already got it. It's gonna put us at about starting off at about 9% alcohol, which I was hoping for a little bit more, but that's okay. And then I'm sitting there looking and the missus is putting in what the proof is, and the proof right now is 0 because there's no alcohol. And so now she's putting in the other one, which is gets us to the right one. So anyway, but we're at that point. Hey, at least this was really funny. So, um, how quickly do you think ice is going to form on a 5-gallon spring water container at 18 degrees?
Depends on its volume.
5 gallons.
You could do the
Well,
math. I don't know what the formula
well,
is, but I know there's a
you
formula.
mean I honestly don't know, but I can at least tell you on the top of each of it, it was about 3.5 hours, and
Yeah,
I was like, I wasn't expecting it. I mean, hey, great in this particular case because when all of a sudden you're putting, uh, the wort in this case, so to speak, at 175 degrees, and then you add in, 25 gallons of stuff that's at, you know, we'll say at least 35 overall because some of it on the top would have been ice. Guess what? It ends up at 68 degrees. Perfect, because I need that pitching of the yeast temperature to be below 80.
yeah. It worked out. How fortuitous.
It's almost like I planned it.
Almost.
Almost.
Did you plan it or did the universe will it to be?
I'm pretty sure I willed the universe to be exactly what I needed it to be. They, I didn't call myself Nostradamus. It just the universe gave it to me.
No, I think you called yourself that, dude, because I remember when you created the Twitter handle. What do you mean?
I mean, I'm pretty sure I was like, "Hey, what do you think?" You're like, "Dude, that is exactly you." I'm like, "All right, well, then that's what we'll do."
Yeah. Speaking of that, man, and we're talking about like knowledge and time. How crazy is it that I think right before I came out, we launched the Webb telescope. I say us because I'm talking about us in the U.S. at NASA. People don't realize that mission started being planned like 50 years ago. They started constructing the ideas and stuff like that like 40 years ago. And a lot of the concerns people had, in the last few weeks of it being out there, and it has like, dude, imagine this. This is a system that has something like 300, I'm not exaggerating, single points of failure. That's a lot, dude.
Well, I think what's even more amazing is that okay, this took 40 years to plan. when we go to like the next generation, it's not going to be 40. It might be 10. And
Right.
then the generation after that, 1.
Hmm.
And then we can consistently do things at less than a year.
Hmm.
I mean, those are the things that become exciting. Like, all right, how many years did it take for us to develop the car or the
Hmm.
light bulb or every other modern thing that we have today? And then we went from technology of, in the 1960s that in order to put that spaceship on the moon, it took something that was a tremendous amount of computing power to where today it's in the palm of your hand.
Yeah, I mean, in a more specific way to your idea, 60 years ago, we were really primitive in putting people into orbit, right? Now we have several robots roving around on another planet, and we've had
Dude,
them there for quite some
now we
time.
can actually put William Shatner in orbit, and that dude has no reason to actually be there, and we can now put him there.
That's comical on another level, dude.
It is.
Yeah.
Or even more so, roughly 47 years ago, we weren't here, and now we are, and we're just kicking ass and taking names.
Cheers to that.
It's not coincidence.
No, man. Yeah, and I feel like I'm in the right time. I'm in the right time in the right place.
So, with our few short minutes left, I don't know if we ever really got into before, but let's say you could live forever based on our current technology and being somewhat
Mhm.
a human and cyborg-like uh, entity. Would you?
Mhm. Yeah, fuck yeah.
So
Yeah,
would I. I wouldn't even
yeah.
think twice about it. Like, yep.
No.
Neuralink. I don't know that I want to be the first iteration of Neuralink, but I might be the second generation of something like that.
Yeah, unquestionably. Um, if I were able to access it, whether it was I had enough money to buy it, or I could do it genetically, or whatever the conditions are, if I met the conditions sufficiently, as long as it's better probably than 75% odds, I would absolutely do it.
75. I
The,
don't
the,
know. Never I thought about the odds
dude,
because
the payout.
just like Han Solo, don't ever tell me the odds. Um, but I look at it as I think I want to be at least more human than like the $1 million man,
Mhm.
but it's also be kind of cool if like I had like a a cyborg like face going on. I would go great with the
He'd be like Cobra
perfect.
Commander.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Well, I mean, think about this, dude. Without significant modification, you and I are well within reach of reaching 2100.
Yeah,
That would not be totally abnormal, especially given how some of our
dude. I mean, look. I
anti-aging
mean, that would only be for me to get to 2100. It would be 125 years. For you, that would be what 124.
24.
Yeah. So I'm good with that.
But what if it changes your spirit or something?
I get the missus going. What if it changes your spirit? Can't change the spirit. Doesn't matter.
What
For,
what no. See, this is what I don't understand, man. Why are demons inherently bad?
well, I mean, in the actual nature, I just don't think that it has to be a demon. I don't think. I think whoever you are, regardless as to how it transforms in terms of, I don't see a difference in terms of my faith and what science brings about. Nothing in, I mean, we could go back like into nothing in Genesis says that evolution couldn't have occurred.
Yeah.
Who am I? Like I am, regard. If you believe in any, um, deity, then there's much more than what you are. So that would mean, in that higher power that I believe, I am not even this fingernail worth of mental capacity as a deity. So who am I to say that evolution wasn't that deity's plan? I'm not going to question that. I don't think. I mean, I don't think that even matters. Like, if that's the way it's got to be, it's the way to be. I don't think they. I don't think they have to be separate. Um, and so, everything that I believe, for me, that what we have in terms of technology, in terms of science, I believe in some capacity has been divine intervention, and so be it. That's just the way I believe. I don't think it. I don't think. I think God and science are in alignment, and so. But even everything as we're going through with COVID treatments, things like that. Hey, there's going to be some mistakes along the way because it's in everything. Humans are trying to do it, and humans are fallible. So, okay. And for people that don't believe, that's fine too. For people that are way on the other side, hey, do whatever you got to do. All I say is, in all of it, leave room for people in your life to think differently and be open to what they have to say. You still might learn something.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're either a good person or you're not. For those people that are bad, and I say the people that are bad live on the extremes. I don't really want to be around the extremes because that means they're fanatical. Fanatical people, it doesn't ever seem to go well, regardless as to which side of the equation you're on.
It's interesting, right? There's a few traits that tend to not manifest in, let's say, truly evil human beings. Uh, People that exercise a
Sexiness
lot.
like this, I know.
Well, mustaches and shaved heads. I mean, that's debatable. Like
No,
a
there's no
scuffed,
debate. I'm a doctor. Trust me.
it's like a scuffed Lex Luthor. Um, like people that exercise a lot, they tend not to be serial killers. You tend not to find evil centrists, right? To your point about extremes.
Yeah.
Um, it's interesting how that manifests, man. And you know what I would say is I don't think religion and science are incompatible in any way, shape, or form. They answer fundamentally different questions. Um, I don't know that one's better or worse than the other. I know that one is better or worse for a specific type of question it's trying to help you answer. It's just a tool. Um, and I would further stipulate that because we're natural beings, part of the natural world, that anything we create is thus natural. And so I don't know, man. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I would dismiss the idea that it's in some measure our biological and ontological destiny to live to 2100. It seems completely reasonable.
Yeah, I wouldn't even say, I don't like to put limits on anything.
I don't
If
think
you
there
can
are any
imagine
limits.
it, if you can imagine it, it can be done. Maybe not in our lifetime, but in some lifetime. Don't put limits on it. If you put a limit, limits to me are bad. Like, keep going.
Uh, I would suggest, and I think based on our prior conversations and even our personal ones, you would agree with me that I'm firmly convinced that there are no limits, except for the ones we put on ourselves.
Yeah,
The
absolutely.
ones we willfully but pretend it's not willfully accept. And if you truly take on this idea of like self actualization in its spirit, man, I'm convinced come on, man, listen, it's an extreme example, but if you're fully self actualized, who says you can't rise from the grave after 3 days? That doesn't seem that crazy to me. It really doesn't. Who says I can't live to be 1,000,000 years old? I don't know, dude. Why? Why couldn't I?
Well, this is what's fascinating when you start looking at the some of the we'll say the Judeo-Christian and even the Muslim aspect. I mean, Adam and Eve lived to be like, depending on what you believe, like thousands of years old.
Mhm.
So let's say we believe that. I tend to, believe that. I mean, we definitely know that that era of human capacity was, a while ago. Who knows what the potential was then? I don't know. let's say it was in the aspect of Atlantis, and they were truly a superior being on this planet, and then something happened. Well, why leave? Why be so rigid in the potential outcomes that could have been when you couldn't witness it? And we see certain scientific evidence of beings that have existed longer than what we believe humans have roamed the earth.
Such as.
I guess it all depends on where you believe in terms of our Homo sapiens sapien versus certain aspects of, Cro-Magnon man, Neanderthals, all those things. There were sentient
Right.
beings. We don't truly know what their capability was. We believe based on some of the things, but we also have evidence of other, things being here. And there's a certain things that would say that humans only existed because some other asteroid showed up here with biological data, so to speak, and because of that, that's how all the stuff transpired.
That's called panspermia. And Crick, one of the discoverers of DNA, kind of championed that idea. Oh, I dig what you're saying now. Yeah. Well, and so look at this, man. I mean, people don't understand actually that the vast majority of life that has existed, one, is extinct. It has been extinct for quite some time. The vast majority of life in some form that's existed on this earth since its inception as a planet is gone permanently.
If you want true proof that aliens exist, just look at an octopus.
Or mushrooms.
Yeah.
Anyway, what I was going to say was it's in excess of 90% of all life that's ever existed is already extinct. What we have is a vast minority.
So I'm interested about that. And what do you think if we were to go back, I don't know, let's say 1,000,000 years?
Mm-hmm.
At 1,000,000 years, does that number of 90% of what had existed had already perished as well? Like, is that a consistent number based upon time? Because we still have things that are always evolving.
Man, I'd have to look it up to be more.
Well,
sure
your gut feeling, just your gut feeling. Because my gut feeling is, regardless of wherever we're at in time, 90% of what had already existed is gone, and only that 10% is what keeps being new. I think that 10% is always going to be there because stuff is constantly dying off and something else is being reborn.
Oh, I understand what you're talking about. I would say no. I disagree, and here's why. 1,000,000 years ago is a drop in the bucket compared to the total lifetime of the planet. And the existence of the planet on a linear time scale has been punctuated by massive extinction events like comet impacts. And I don't know where in relationship to the last major impact 1,000,000 years is, but my hunch, based on rough memory, is that 1,000,000 years is much more recent. And so, like, dude, 1,000,000 years ago, there weren't no fucking dinosaurs. And the distance from us to like a T-Rex to another type of dinosaur is massive. Those are billions of years, which is on another scale, man. It's so hard to imagine. I think you could definitely pick a spot if you had a time machine, let's call it X, that you could go back to and only 1% of life is extinct. And I think you could pick a spot much more recent where it's still 90% period. It just depends on what side of those extinction event boundaries you are.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm trying to go back because for some reason I want to say like the T-Rex existed more than 1,000,000 years ago.
Oh yeah. No, a T-Rex was much farther in the past than 1,000,000 years. Well, I mean, look, modern man's only been around for, I mean, the current estimates are somewhere between 60 and 75,000 years. And so if you go
Homo sapiens sapien, or when we start getting into like Neanderthal?
Yeah. No. Modern. Well, call it Neanderthal forward because we're mixed with Neanderthals in a lot of cases, at least in Northern Europe. It's
So
60 to 75.
I was just going back, like if we go back a million years ago, well, T-Rex didn't even exist because T-Rexes were somewhere
Dinosaurs
between,
are extinct.
yeah, a million years ago they were gone,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
I mean,
So,
there hasn't been a dinosaur on this planet for a billion years.
well, no, T-Rex was somewhere between 83.6 and 66 million years ago.
Oh, I'm a
I just,
factor off.
I just Googled that shit.
Yeah.
Let's see a T-Rex and their tiny little arms do that.
Oh shit, that's interesting. That that time scale is so fucked up, man. Think about that. So let's round it up and be generous and call it 100 million years,
Yeah,
right?
so like let's go back 100 million years, right? So
How
100
many
million years,
hundred millions are in a billion?
uh,
A
well,
lot.
yeah. So I just go, all right, let's go back 100 million years. Do you still think that like 90% at that time has been extinct? Because I mean, I would believe that I have no evidence. I think at that point in time, as the Earth, it was much more volatile, and you saw a lot more changes occurring on a very rapid scale. I mean, there was a lot more things going on.
Here's how
Um,
you tell, dude. Here's how you tell. Let me look this up real quick. It's a great
I mean,
question, man.
you're the biology major and spend a lot of time in this, but I just go like, hey, I mean, as you're looking it up, I go, man, how many things were coming to fruition and then dying off so quickly? Because there was a lot. I mean, not only you had dinosaurs, you had ice ages, you had meteors, you had volcanic activity, you had Pangea breaking apart, all those things going on.
Um,
Like, to me, it seems a very volatile. I wouldn't want to have been alive in that time period. I would have gotten. I mean, the probability of a being existing to produce, you get eaten. I think.
so here is my recollection, um, and based on what I'm reading, my interpretation of not only my memory of studying this, and this was not my interest. My interest was microbiology as a biologist. Um, what did you say, T Rex? Like 80 million?
Yeah, yeah. It was like 80 to 60 million years ago. So
Okay, so
they only had a 20 million year existence
yeah, yeah.
with those short
Uh,
little arms. So they couldn't use an iPhone.
that's correct. And there were no hominids.
Right.
However, there were mammals, and that's a big fucking deal. Mammals first appeared about 180 million. So let's call it double in the past to the T
Yeah,
Rex,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
For mammals to appear, the planet is pretty stable,
Okay.
right? And so that last mass extinction of the dinosaurs was a common impact, and we know where it was and how big it was, and we know what it did because you can measure it in the sediment profiles, and you get into these. Well, it inculcated an ice age. That's how fucking devastating it was. It hit like in the Gulf of Mexico. I think that's the one. There was another one that hit like in Central America, Central North America, and then of course you have Yellowstone events too, where Yellowstone's a super lateral volcano that exploded and shot shit into the atmosphere and blotted out the sun and froze the planet. But anyway, you get forward in time, and the planet as an ecosystem is pretty stable. And my recollection of ecology in this sense and biology in this sense was once mammals start showing up, shit's pretty locked down.
So then,
And that's
with
why you get
that,
these punctuated events of like, the hand of God reaching down and destroying shit.
so I mean, with that aspect of you saying that, hey, like 100 million years ago, because mammals existed, it was pretty stable. Then at that particular point in time, we could then at least posit that 90% of whatever existed has already been extinct, and we still have that 10% because it's been pretty stable since mammals have existed.
Um, I don't know, man. We'd have to look into it because here's the thing.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm just going, or I mean, just looking at those things, maybe you get plus or minus, but it's going to keep going. That maybe at around that 100 million year mark, that's when we became stable as a planet.
The planet's ecosystem is stable, but when you get these massive impacts, so consider this, right? So you go through the mass extinction of the dinosaurs, and that's what gives rise to mammals, right? Because those niches are unfilled. And when I'm talking mammals, I'm talking like mice, right? These are the size of the mammals. They're not big mammals at all. You don't have woolly mammoths and shit like that, right? Woolly
Not
mammoths and
yet. Not
T-Rex did
yet.
not coexist. Not at all. Okay, so
Nor
saber-toothed tigers and shit
saber-toothed
like
tigers.
that's right, right? Now, saber-toothed tigers and woolly mammoths, yes. Saber-toothed tigers, woolly mammoths, T-Rex, fucking no. Mammals of that size did not exist with
No, they were
dinosaurs of that
tiny.
size.
Well, I mean, tiny in comparative to the lizards that roamed. Probably bigger than what we have today.
At the time of the dinosaurs, the mammals were all small. They're super small, like mice, shoe size. There's no
So,
large mammals.
like the current size of mice.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yes. Okay. And so
I don't
that's how they
know.
were. Yeah. And so that's how largely how they were able to survive these extinction events because they're also all burrowing animals, and they occupy ecosystem niches that the reptiles didn't. Okay. The only reptiles that carried forward were those that were bird-like, which is why you have birds, right? Like so, when I say my chickens are dinosaurs, I'm not making that shit up.
No, I get it. Yeah.
People have done studies where they've reverse engineered some of their genetic code and got them to grow more scales.
So, how far away do you really think we are to being able to recreate a velociraptor?
We could probably do it now if we really wanted to.
Do you think
It'd
it's
be
already
messy.
happened? Does Jurassic Park really exist?
No, I don't think so, man, because there's no novelty in it. And it's not stable. Now, think about this, though, right? Think about how fast we went. When you talk about like the speed of innovation. Do you remember when were we in junior high when Dolly the sheep, the cloning was a big deal?
Yeah.
I think we were like probably in 6th, 7th, 9th grade, somewhere in that range, right?
Right, sure.
Dude, cloning is not a big deal now.
So, you know the great
And we didn't
part,
have CRISPR back then.
right? You know the great part about where I live versus where you live? A velociraptor can't exist here. It can where you do, and that means you're going to die.
No, it means I'm going to have an army of velociraptors.
You better hope you have an army of velociraptors, because if you don't
I'll be like Chris Pratt.
that one's gonna because they can't exist here. They will die. It's way too cold.
Well, during the winter they can't, but it's like zombies, dude. During the spring and the summer, they might range up there and get your ass.
Dude, it's way too much for them. Like our summer doesn't even start until like July, and then it ends like in September.
Yeah. So what I was going to say was though, fast forward. Then,
Dude,
right?
today it's 12 degrees outside, and with that wind chill, it's like -5 right now.
Oh, I remember, dude. I remember.
That's why those 5-gallon jugs of spring water, like 2.5 hours, they're like almost ice blocks.
So fast forward. You got to fast forward
Yeah.
millions of years. Mammals evolve, and we get primates, or early progenitors of primates, not as we know them now, right? And from that primate line, we get hominids. And time goes forward, and you start getting more advanced hominids up into Neanderthals and shit like that, dude.
Like Ian.
Hey, fair enough, dude. People don't understand this. At one point, there was another extinction event, and modern hominids, Neanderthal forward, got down to like 15,000 individuals. That's it. That's all that existed. There's quite a bit more than 15,000 now.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know, man. Part of it is chance. There's no way around it, dude. There was no way to predict or control those asteroids or those comets striking the Earth. Random shit happens in a random universe at that level of analysis, right? At that level of analysis.
So
But here we
when
are.
do you think the next asteroid was going to strike Earth?
Oh, Jesus, dude. There's a lot of people that study that full time.
Yeah.
I mean, there's serious groups that work on.
I mean, for this one, they're called near Earth objects, and so
Yeah.
to them, like a bare miss is like 100,000 miles or something like that. Like it's
Because
it's large to us, but to them it's like, hey, that's like a 1% degree change in trajectory, and boom,
That's right.
Australia's gone.
Well, I mean, hey, speaking of Australia, man, they've recently found out, it was last week. Maybe I was out there when I was reading it, or maybe it was on the plane ride back, man. The Aboriginals are a big culture and social group of study when you talk about the lineage of man back into time. And they found that genetic bloodline of Aboriginals in Australia came down from Asia. That's natural. People have suspected that for a long time because of their genetic makeup. But dude, it's like 10 to 15,000 years older than we thought. And that's one of the things I love about science is as we increase our instrumentation power, we're able to peer deeper into the past and uncover some of these mysteries. And I find that massively interesting, man. And back to your point as we wrap this up, in no way, shape, or form does that impact my spirituality. It's those are
Well, I
fundamentally
mean, think
different
about it, like
questions.
I mean, look, we can take all the different continents and we can piece them back together and see how, hey, where the puzzle developed.
Oh
It
yeah,
doesn't have anything to do with, my faith or and what I believe anyone else's faith should, because I mean, logically, I can see it with my eyes and see how these things happen. Uh, where Australia fits into it, why couldn't they have gone Africa, Asia, Australia, and it only been a couple thousand miles? And how long does that take for several generations to evolve? Not many.
you know, despite what can happen to us, because we're pretty fragile as animals go, we are pretty hardy, and we can survive in. Yeah, right. I mean, think about this, right? There's not very many other forms of life on the planet other than like insects and bacteria, microorganisms that can survive in just about any climate. And that's one thing we do better than anything else.
Yeah,
We
we
have
can
a
figure it out.
complete
We'll figure it out. Yeah.
we have a complete mastery over climate at a
Hmm.
micro level, right? It
Yeah.
gets too
Yeah.
hot, I'll build air conditioners. It gets too cold, I'll build heaters or make a
I'll
fire.
start a fire. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, right. We're pretty unique in the ecosystem of the planet, man. And I really don't think I really sincerely believe this. I don't think we're as bad as some people think we are, and I don't think shit's as bad as people think it is. Or if it
Yeah.
is,
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we're pretty good at figuring out how to solve problems.
This is what's interesting to me when someone said, not, I don't know how many years ago, hey, you know what? Humans really aren't at the top of the food chain. And I just kind of laughed. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, as a species, we have a higher intellect and a higher capability of basically defeating any natural, non-human entity, even a human entity, than any other species together. Doesn't matter. We can figure it out. We can go at a longer distance than any other animal, especially together. Like we can figure it out. We are a perfect combination today of intellect and capability than any other species that's on the planet. Doesn't matter what it is. We can hunt anything and kill it.
Actually, I think that was us. We had that conversation, I think, with RB like 2 months ago when
Oh
I
yeah, but
said,
before there's people that like
yeah,
well before that they're like, I mean, this got into a highly philosophical like, many years ago for me, where they were like, well, this is why I believe in abortion, and hey, up until I met TK, I was definitely a pro-choice person, and until I realized that, one of the people that I consider a mentor was adopted in TK, and I'm like, well, wait a minute, and from what he has described and what I have interpreted, his biological mother considered abortion.
mhm.
So what would this world have been if he didn't exist? That I don't know. What I do know is what has happened because he did exist. And so it's maybe reconsider that life is precious, and I don't think uh, it has limited the amount of possibilities to where I believe I could be pro-choice.
Mhm.
I still think there are some. Before there were many more, and so I am now overwhelmingly in my life would consider myself pro-life. Versus if we go back 10 years, it would have been the opposite. Even though with my faith and all those kind of things, I looked at things differently.
Well, and I think that's actually a sign of a healthy mind. To categorize this correctly, my comment was we're not the top apex predator.
No,
That's
we're the
different than saying,
apex predator as a species.
Oh, I don't think so, because we're fundamentally not a predator, even though we can prey on
You may
things.
not be a predator yet. I will teach you this later.
I actually think our power is we're divorced from our hierarchies.
Yeah, I don't know the humans. Like I don't I tend to are we are not naturally a predator until you put us into a position where we must be, and then get the fuck out of the way.
Well, but that's what people say. Well, if you didn't have clothes, shelter, weapons, yeah, but I do, and that's what makes us unique. Is we fucking do. I mean, listen, man, I love primates, and there's some really intelligent behavior in higher apes, right? I ain't seen those assholes create planes and fly around. Why not?
Well,
We
I think
did,
this is
right?
quite clear to me. If the elephants don't come into the village and start killing us, we leave them alone. When the elephants start coming into the village and start killing our people, we destroy them. We don't seek out the threat, but if the threat happens, we eliminate it. And they're not capable. Doesn't matter if it's a tiger, doesn't matter if it's lions, doesn't matter if it's a shark, whatever it is, we leave it alone. Hey, you leave us alone, we leave you alone.
Yeah.
You decide to go past that boundary, we can collectively eliminate any species on the planet.
See, and that's a unique trait too. You only see that really like in canines or
Yeah,
other apes and shit like that. Is collective pack behavior. I
yeah.
mean, big cats don't act that way.
Like, look, if a lion's never came into and did, hey, go do what you got to do out in the prairie. Eat those zebra. Don't come to the village. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
it's pretty simple. We leave you alone, you leave us alone. You don't leave us alone. Then we go fanatical and we take out like everything. This is why I think in some ways, hey, we've got some extinctions going on because we're like, all right, like how many white tigers exist? It's like, a couple dozen.
Oh, Siberian ones? Oh yeah,
Yeah,
dude.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
not. Yeah, there's not very many, man. There's not very many, and most of them probably in fucking Texas.
Maybe, yeah, not legally, right? So anyway,
Yeah.
but all right, my friend. Well, hey, good seeing you again.
Good to see you.
You good for next Wednesday still?
I should be, man. I don't know why I wouldn't be.
Well,
Actually,
we'll probably be brewing something else. Who knows? You'll see the big old. We haven't named the still yet because we don't know its personality, but
We're working on
it's
it.
we're getting there. We're getting there.
Carl, Carl the copper still.
Carl the Copper. I don't think it's going to be that, but
It's gonna be a
that might be in our top million guesses. But
Hey, man. You got to start somewhere. Sometimes you got to start with the shitty ones.
exactly. All right, my friend. Good seeing you again. As always, have a great rest of your week. Be safe on your hall pass.
Never.
All right, my friend. Take care. Have a great week.
Cheers,
Cheers,
everybody. Good
everyone.
night.
Take care. Bye.
Bye bye.